So step 3, how to pair fonts. All right, so we've gone over what is type, okay, kind of getting the basic anatomy. We have talked about how to choose a font. All right, we've gone over that sort of step. We've done the questionnaire. Now we're going to talk about how to pair fonts. All right, how do we pair fonts together? How do we choose what font goes with another font? All right, and again, now you see why we've got 3 weeks to work on all this, because we've got a whole bunch of separate elements going on here. So how do you pair fonts? So we're going to go down to our files that we need, go into our typography folder, and this one's a PDF, so it's the guide. It's a handout that I found through actually the AIGA, which is the American Institute of Graphic Artists. And so the guide to pairing fonts here. Okay, this is pretty simple. This, again, we're trying to break this out into steps for you to make it easy. Tip 1 is to pair in all caps with a script. Okay, and all you're going to see here is these 2 fonts, and then this is what the fonts are. Okay, and so the first one is to take an all caps, okay, with a script. So you can see the different types of all caps here with a script, and different ways. The script on top, the script on the bottom, the script on top. You get the idea, okay? And working that kind of thing, okay? So this is the first one. Tip 1 is to try this, all right? So pairing these 2 together is just taking the caps with a script, all right? Number 2, pair a skinny with a chunky, all right? This works a lot because it creates contrast, and contrast is big, all right, because it's easier to see, obviously. So kindness matters, okay, and you see the fonts on the right-hand side, all right? Love never fails, joy every day, and you can see how they use them, okay? So they're not just pairing them in terms of like top and bottom, they're playing with how they're paired and how they're used, all right? Because you might be using them in all kinds of different ways. So number 2 is to pair skinny with chunky fonts. Number 3 is to pair fancy and simple, okay? And so very clean, very simple, okay, with the more decorative fonts, right? And again, all these are just basic ways to kind of put fonts together, right? You sort of create contrast. All right, tip 4, pair the lowercase with the capitals of one font. So just using the same font and going uppercase with lowercase. All right, you can see kind of the difference in what happens. And you look at it and you say, well, that's 2 different fonts, but it's not. It's the lowercase version and the uppercase version, which can be nice because then you're only using one font. You do not want a logo design, a layout, a poster, whatever. You want to have max 3 fonts, okay? You do not want to go crazy with fonts. It just makes things more difficult for you. Also harder for you to read, too. Tip 5, pair different but similar styles. Now, this one you got to be careful with, okay, because it can almost look like a mistake. All right, if you look at this one right here, which is Be Brave, it's very similar. It's actually, this almost looks like the same font except with that drop shadow. So that can be hard sometimes because you want to do it, but you also, when you only create minor contrast like that, sometimes that becomes a problem. All right, so you got to be careful with this one. All right, tip 6, wide and narrow. All right, so you can take your wide fonts with your narrow fonts. Tip 7, pair tall and short. All right, and again, contrast. Look at the contrast. This works so well, all right, because of the contrast between the 2 sizes. This is really big, really bold, really tall, really heavy, and this is the exact opposite of that, all right, which makes it just very nice, very balanced, all right. And then these are just some last-minute font tips through here, okay. Couple of incorrect versus correct fonts, bouncy fonts, first letter drop, okay. Using all cap fonts, all right. So just some other different ideas, all right. Type in all caps to keep things even. When you're dealing with, especially a typographic type poster with a lot of type, sometimes it's nice to go all caps because you can create a much even space, all right? And when you have uppercase and lowercase, you've got A centers, you've got D centers, and you've got some issues when they combine, okay? So there's some examples: incorrect, correct, correct. You get the idea. All right, incorrect, correct, correct. So just some different examples here, okay? And again, I found this on AIGA's curriculum site, so you'll have this to look at, all right? Very basic. Again, just trying to help you with the basics of how to pair fonts together, and this will help you. You know, if you start looking at your magazine layout and you're like, well, I want to do a header. How would I pair a header with the body copy that I really, really like? And this is how you can go back to it, all right? Trying to give you some step-by-step things. So as far as what you're going to do for the little activity, and again, I only want this to take about an hour. I want you to pick a very short quote, a very short song lyric, whatever you want, and I want you to pick 2 fonts, and I want you to combine them together and create kind of a quick little typographic poster of your lyric or your quote, okay? 8.5 by 11, very basic, okay? And again, we're going to work on this for like an hour. Pick 2 fonts using one of those pairings that I just showed you and that's in the form. I want you to pick one of those pairings. I want you to find your quote. I want you to find your font, and I want you to take those two fonts and combine them for a quick little layout, okay? I'll give you about an hour to work on this. All right, if you got any questions, let me know. Look through the font guide to pairing, all right, once you get through it, as well as your font choice questionnaire if you really want to get into it, all right? But right now, I'm more worried about your font pairing, okay? Good luck.